Hi everyone, and welcome to my, what did I want to call this? The complete guide to knowing how to watch Bouldering World Cups. As I've mentioned before in one of my other explaining videos, I absolutely love knowing everything when I'm watching a sport. Like, I didn't like watching basketball until I understood all of the rules explained to me by a friend, and then I loved it. And I know a lot of people are like that, and climbing can be kind of confusing. I'm a Bouldering World Cup athlete. I've competed since 2013 in the Bouldering World Cup series. The rules have changed a lot, so we're going to be talking about the current rules and what you might need to know if you're trying to watch a World Cup and are confused and you like to know everything like me. First things first, you need to know how bouldering works. Basically, what it is you have a start position on the boulder, and then a zone hold, which is a 10-point hold, and then the top, which is worth 25 points. And ideally, the best thing you could do would be to get that 25-point hold on your very first attempt. So you come out, you see a boulder for the first time, you try it, you do it on your first try, you get 25 points even. So what does it mean to do a boulder? Basically, it means that you have to have started in the position correctly, so done the correct start position, and then reached the finish hold with two hands in control. And that definition of what control is something that we're going to get into.
Come on, Kyra!
Say you don't do the boulder. Say you only get the 10-point zone. If you did it on your first try, you would have 10 points. Doesn't matter if you try more times after that. So say I got the 10-point on my first try, but tried 10 more times and failed to get the zone again, or I get it every time, that doesn't matter. I got it on my first try, my score is 10. The same thing is true for topping the boulder. So you'd have 25 minus 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, depending on how many tries you had. Okay, something that always confuses me when I'm looking at the scores is if I have 3 tries, that's only 2 falls. So you only get scored as -1 for every fall you take getting to your highest point. For example, if I get a boulder on my 3rd try, that's only 2 falls on the boulder. I did it my 3rd try successfully. So I fell twice and then did it my 3rd try. I get -0.1 for the 2 falls, but I did it 3rd try. A little confusing, but you can kind of think of it as how many falls did you take. A bouldering qualification round consists of 5 boulders, so you get that score on every single one. So say first boulder, you don't do anything, you have 0 points. Then the second boulder, you get 10 points on your first try. Then the third boulder, you top it on your second try. You would have another 24.9 plus that 10, so you would have 34.9. And the next boulder, let's say you got 10 again on your second try. This math is going to get kind of confusing, but you kind of, that for me to do as I'm talking, but you get the idea. All of your points on every boulder add up to be your final score. Okay, now that we've kind of covered scoring, I think I want to go into what use of a hold is, what topping a boulder means, and what a start position is. Let's start with the start position because that makes the most sense. When you look at a Bouldering World Cup, you will see 4 pieces of tape at the start. It'll be marked as start with a little sign, and there are 4 pieces of tape. Each piece of tape represents a body part, basically. You have 2 hands and 2 feet. And a body part has to be on every hold that has a piece of tape. So if there's 1 piece of tape on 4 different holds, that means you have to have 1 point on each of those holds. If you have a large hold with all 4 pieces of tape on it, that means you have to start with all 4 points on that one hold. And starting positions can be appealed, which we'll get into appeals later, but what that means is that you didn't start correctly. So say I accidentally, had a brain fart and got on the wall and forgot to touch my 4th point, and I just grabbed and then pulled through to the next hold. The judge would come over and call me off of the wall, and it would count as an attempt because I started incorrectly. When you're starting, you also have to show control of the start position. So it means that you can't have a flying start where you are moving on the start hold before you actually start going. You have to show that you have controlled the 4 points, whether they're separate, together, all on one, whatever. You have to show that control and that you're in a controlled position, and then you can start moving. So you also sometimes see judges or coaches appeal athletes for starting incorrectly because they moved off the start position too fast and didn't show control. There was an example of this recently with Sorato at the Innsbruck 2025 World Cup, where in finals his starting position got appealed for the final boulder, and they had to reclimb it in order to get the points for the boulder. How the IFSC defines a controlled start is that it has to be a stable position with both hands and both feet in the starting position. That's the exact wording that they use. Other things that the judge can call you off for are touching the ground accidentally or dabbing, and they'll come and pull you off the wall. Well, not physically, but they'll tell you to get down. You can get called off for using something that is out of bounds. For example, an unfinished edge of a climbing wall. If it doesn't have, a corner that's built out, if it's just the side of the plywood, then you're not allowed to use it. And if you do, either accidentally or on purpose, you will get called off. You'll also sometimes see black tape on the wall, and that is a marked boundary, and any holds on the other side of that or wall features are off and the climber cannot use them. A random other rule that I thought of is you're not allowed to touch any holds that are not the start hold unless you are attempting to climb. So if I go up to a climb and start touching all the holds that I can reach from the ground that are not marked as start holds, I will get an attempt counted, and if I keep doing it, I'll get a yellow card, which is an infraction, essentially, being it's unsportsmanlike. Since I mentioned a yellow card, they're pretty rare. You don't see them happen that often, but you can get one for obscene language, for being rude to a judge, for kicking a chalk bag. You can get one for accidentally forgetting to wear your bib on your back, which is like how they identify you as an athlete, all sorts of things like that. And or you can get one for being late to your start time. There's a lot of things that can lead to a yellow card. It's pretty hard to get a red card. I've never seen it, I think, in my days competing. Okay, use of zone hold is probably the most appealed thing in World Cups. What the IFSC rules say is that in order to be awarded the points of the zone hold, that 10 points, you need to complete an establishing movement or complete an advancing movement to achieve a stable position on some hold further along the line of progress of the boulder. This rule has changed a lot because it has always caused so much drama. An establishing movement is defined as a single or continuous series of climbing movements aimed at stabilizing a climber's position on a hold, in which the climber uses the hold to adjust their position, re-grip, or shift their weight to achieve balance and stability. So you are able to just simply use the hold to shift your weight and readjust, but you can't just touch it and not use it. This distinction is really nuanced and often appealed, like I said, and so it is something that has been really hard to define for a long time, whether or not an athlete has used the zone or not. So here are some contentious ones that have happened recently. We're now going to talk about how do you get the top, how do you achieve the top, and how it's defined is that you have to control or match the marked finishing hold with both hands. And having done so, you achieve a stable position before the climbing time expires and either perform some action common to the sport or controls the marked finishing hold long enough to do so. Actions that are considered common to the sport, I've actually never read this rule, this is funny to me, but actions common to the sport include shaking out, celebrating, chalking up, changing a foot position. So say you're on the finish hold and you do one of these, but you show that you're controlled at both hands, that's fine. But this is something that you want to make sure as an athlete, you grab both hands and you'll see people achieve the stable position and then celebrate. If you do it too early, it's risky. Okay, hopefully that helps you understand how to start a boulder, how to get zone, how to top, how scoring works overall. But now let's get into some of the nuances about how the actual competition runs. First up, there is an isolation zone in bouldering competitions. So every person that you see competing has never seen the boulders before and actually spent their entire warm-up without cell phones, without Wi-Fi access, without any Bluetooth devices, so that they have no idea what they're gonna see. You're in that isolation zone, and it's also a warm-up zone. It usually has a wall, some hangboards, some space for stretching, some pads, food, a couple other things, water, and that's where all of the coaches are and all of the athletes, because you can't have coaches who are talking to athletes in that zone who have seen the boulders before. You can have people completely separate who are staying with the audience, but they're not allowed to interact with the athletes until after the round is done. People always have questions about what happens in ISO. It's really not that exciting. You usually have to get up pretty early, turn in your phone, you get your bib, you check in, you chat for a bit, listen to some music on an old iPod so that you don't have Wi-Fi access, and then you warm up and you prepare to go out. And then you end up behind the wall, sitting in a chair, waiting for your time to go, because how the competition runs is you have 5 minutes on a boulder, 5 minutes off. 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off until you finish all 5 of your boulders. If you have remaining time when you finish a boulder, you get to rest the remaining time behind the wall. You don't get to stay out and watch, and you get to have extra rest, basically. So if I do my first boulder within a minute, I still have 4 minutes. I go back behind the wall, I have that 4 minutes to rest, plus the next 5 minutes to rest, and then I go out in the next rotation. So minimally, you always have at least 5 minutes to rest. But if you get that extra rest, it helps a lot. So if you're doing boulders first try, it just compounds throughout the round and you get more and more rest and you're the freshest you could possibly be for the last boulder. But say you did every boulder on your last try with 30 seconds left, you're gasping for air kind of by the end, and it can be pretty exhausting. In qualifiers, you have 5 boulders, 5 minutes. In semifinals, you have 4 boulders, 5 minutes. And in finals, you have 4 boulders with 4 minutes. And that is because finals athletes are able to observe the boulders before the round. And typically, part of that 5 minutes is looking at the boulder and figuring out what you're gonna do. And in finals, since you get to do that beforehand as a group, you only get 4 minutes to climb. You have to figure out how you're gonna climb a boulder because, like I said, you've never seen it before. You've been in isolation. You haven't watched anybody climb. And so you come out, you see it for the first time, and that first 30 to 40 seconds is spent just looking at what's in front of you and trying to figure out what the heck you're gonna do. The number of people who advance to semifinals is 24 people. The number of people who advance to finals is 8 people. Okay, now this is something that I've seen a lot of confusion about this year, and it's why are the qualifying results always looking so wonky? And the reason that is because there are always, if there are more than 60 competitors, 2 groups of athletes. So there's group A and group B, and they're separated by world rank. So you have the world rank order, and you have the first, the second, the third, the fourth, and all of the odd numbers are in one group and all of the even numbers are in the other group. So you'd never have the person who's first world rank and second world rank be in the same group. In order to advance to semifinals and be part of that 24 people to advance, you have to be top 12 in your group. They're essentially 2 completely separate competitions happening at the same time. So if I'm in group B, I am not competing against the girls in group A, but I am competing against the girls in group B to be in one of those top 12 spots in order to advance to the semifinals. This is how the score sheet looks when you're looking at qualifying results. So say you're watching World Cups and you're trying to decipher this. How it works is that the 2 people who are different colors at the top are in different groups. So the light gray is one group and the dark gray is a different group. So only the people in the dark gray are competing against each other and only the people in the light gray are competing against each other. This 2-group system is also why you often see ties in semifinals in bouldering. Because you cannot use countbacks to qualifiers to break ties, because there are 2 groups, it was 2 completely different competitions. Say me, somebody in group B, and somebody else in group A tie in semifinals. We did not compete on the same boulders in qualifiers, so we're tied going into the finals round in that example. We saw an example of this in China this year because we had a big tie after semifinals for 11th place that I was in, but because athletes were in 2 different groups in qualifiers, we all ended up with 11th place. Okay, for the last 3 things that I'm gonna explain in this video, and hopefully this helps you understand what's going on both behind the scenes and with some of the random technical things that happen during a competition. The 3 things I'm gonna explain are a blood technical, just an actual technical, and an appeal. Blood technicals are easy to explain. You bleed in climbing, the holds are sharp, you slide, you hit your knee on the wall, your elbow on the wall, whatever. And if you're bleeding, you are told you have to stop that bleeding and cover it before you're able to keep climbing. What the IFSC rules say about a blood injury is that if a climber sustains one, it has to be cleaned and dressed, and then the holds have to be cleaned if there is any blood on them, and the jury president must be satisfied with the wound to be adequately dressed before the athlete is allowed to continue on other boulders. Judges on the field of play are able to stop an athlete from competing and make them address a blood injury before they're able to continue competing. And this is an impact on your own time. So if you have a blood technical, your fingers are bleeding, whether it's your fingertips, your elbow, whatever, if there's a chance of blood getting on the wall, you will be asked to stop and fix the blood situation before you're able to get back on. As an athlete, this can be really frustrating, obviously, because you can't really do much about the fact that you're bleeding or that the climb that you're being asked to climb made you bleed. So you just need to be prepared, but it does take away time, and time is precious, so you only have 5 minutes. A technical incident means anything from a broken or loose hold, so a spinner, screws pop out, a hold falls off. I've seen that happen. It can also be a critical failure of the timing system. So say the time stops and you have no idea how much time you have left. That can also be a technical. It can also just be an unforeseen or unusual circumstance that places the competitor in a situation different from their peers. And those technical incidents have to be called on the field of play. You're not able to go back behind the wall and then be like, hey, actually, I had a technical back there. You have to call it in the moment and stop climbing. Say I, as an athlete, have a technical incident occur on the third boulder with 3 minutes remaining. My climbing time will stop, and then I will later in the round get that 3 minutes back where I get to go back out on the climb and climb for 3 minutes again. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about is appeals, and appeals are always super interesting because usually you're appealing to take something away from somebody. If you're your own coach, you're usually appealing to get something. So you can appeal that your athlete did actually get control of the zone. You can appeal that your athlete did actually get a top. You can appeal that somebody else's athlete didn't actually get a top, or that somebody else's athlete started incorrectly. All of those things are on the table, but that's why you see so many iPads and videos going on at a World Cup, because all of the coaches are looking for things, making sure that all the athletes are following the rules. Where you see this the most often is you'll see somebody top a boulder and just be falling away the whole time and never actually achieve that stable position that we talked about. And if that's the case, it was not a top. It can be really iffy sometimes. And so if there's an iffy one, sometimes it goes your way, sometimes it doesn't, but you always see coaches appeal it just to make sure. And that means that judges then will go review video and see if they actually think it was a top or not. There's nothing worse than thinking that you have a top and then having it get taken away because of a faulty starting position or not holding the finish hold for long enough or falling too much or whatever it is. It's a terrible feeling. You also, as a coach, have to pay to appeal, and you only get the money back if you win. This is to discourage coaches and teams from just putting in frivolous appeals. So you're only supposed to appeal things that you really think were not within the rules. You still get some iffy ones, and luckily that means that at least the team loses $100 if they do that. Because it's not really the spirit of sport to just appeal people because you want to. Okay, I think that's kind of everything that I can think of off the top of my head that would really help when you're trying to watch a World Cup. So hopefully you like this, and if you like explaining videos and knowing everything like I do, I'll try and do more of these. And if you have any ideas of what you would like to know more about, comment them below and like and subscribe, because I'll do more of things like this, and also climbing and training tips and behind the scenes and outdoor climbing and whatever else. So if you like that, follow along and subscribe, like, everything like that.